For years, Robert Stack narrated America's most terrifying actual stories on unresolved mysteries. But in his last interview before passing away, he turned into the tale. "I have something I need to say," he said to the journalist. After 84 years of seclusion, the Hollywood great eventually disclosed the startling reality about his career, his well-known associates, and the actual life tragedy that tormented him till his last day. His following remarks left everyone speechless. Born on January 13, 1919 in Los Angeles, California, Robert Stack Charles Langford Modini Stack was his full name, a name his mother chose to commemorate her father. Later, his father changed it to Rob. The Stack family was well-connected and rich. James Langford Stack, his father, was a talented sportsman and successful advertising executive. His mom, often Mary Elizabeth Wood, attended high-profile social events. His family was closely connected to the arts. Charles Modini Wood, his maternal grandpa, was an opera singer who sang in Italy. Richard Bonelli, another relative, was a well-known baritone at the Metropolitan Opera. Los Angeles's entertainment landscape was even shaped by his great-great-grandfather. He owned the Orpheum, one of the original theaters in the city. Though he grew up in wealth, Stack's youth was not always simple. When he was just 1 year old, his parents divorced. Stack's mother took him to Europe. His elder brother remained in California with their father. Surrounded by European culture, he spent his early years in Rome and Adria. When he was 6, he could speak fluent French and Italian. He never picked up English, though, until he went back to Los Angeles at age 7. Returning home, when his father died, life became much more challenging and a major shift. At just 9 years old, Stack from then on, his mother brought up him and his brother alone, but she was well connected in Hollywood. Not understanding that these first meetings might influence his career, she brought her kid to renowned performers as Spencer Tracy and Clark Gable. Stack was more concerned in sports than acting at the moment. At 16, he was already establishing a reputation as an athlete. A sport involving striking clay targets in the air, skeet shooting, he mastered. At the age of 18 in 1937, he won the U.S. 20-gauge champion skeet shooter. With an amazing run of more than 350 straight hits, he broke 2 world records. His ability got him a place on the All-American Skeet Squad. Years later, a site in the National Skeet Shooting Hall of Fame in 1971. Robert Stack's Hollywood career began with a newsworthy event. He starred the romantic lead opposite Deanna Durbin in First Love, 1939, a part that came with a duty larger than most first-time performers could conceive. This was not only a movie. For Durbin, who had spent years as a child star, it was a turning point, and required the Globe to view her as a grown-up actor. Stack was directly in the center of the studio's strategy to make it occur. Durbin's change was the core of the narrative. The film was a contemporary retelling of Cinderella. A single kiss, however, truly drew notice. Universal Pictures made sure everyone knew about Durbin's first on-screen kiss. Producer Joe Pasternak sought to indicate Durbin's move into mature parts, and nothing made that clearer than a love encounter with an attractive new leading guy. That year in Hollywood, the kiss became one of the most discussed events. Stack's part did not go unobserved, despite all the focus on Durbin. His performance suggested a future full with larger parts. He played a lovely social child who fell for Durbin's character. The movie itself was successful, garnering Oscar nods for sound, art, set design, and musical scoring. While Stack had his own triumph, Durbin's performances of Amapola and Un Bel D from Madame Butterfly were a huge highlight. This was his first Hollywood film, and folks were beginning to recall his name. A year later, Stack had a far different part in The Mortal Storm, 1940. A movie not only for fun. Frank Borzage helmed it as a statement. One of the earliest Hollywood movies to openly attack Nazi Germany was this one. Most studios back then shunned subjects that would damage their worldwide box receipts. The fatal storm, however, persisted. It revealed how Hitler's ascent to power ripped apart German families and relationships. Stack portrayed Otto von Rohn, a young man swayed by Nazi ideas. The change in his character from an average person to a devoted follower of Hitler was a disturbing wake-up call of how fast propaganda may consume people. To a devoted admirer of Hitler was a disturbing wake-up call of how fast propaganda might engulf individuals. Though it never mentioned Jew, the film made its point quite obvious. It depicted the results of blind adherence to an authoritarian government, terror, and persecution. The film's debut arrived at a pivotal historical juncture. Tensions were growing, and Europe was already at war. Germany right away prohibited The Deadly Storm, together with every other MGM movie. That merely showed how strong the narrative was. A fight between Otto and his pacifist friend Martin, played by James Stewart, was among the film's most dramatic sequences. Their tableau depicted the split then occurring in Germany. It was not only political, it was about treachery, loss, and the breakdown of human ties. For Stack, this position was pivotal. It showed he could deal with important topics and complicated personalities. He was no longer the young, fresh-faced actor from First Love. He was someone who could make a difference and handle challenging parts. Then came To Be or Not to Be, 1942, a movie unlike any Stack had previously worked on. A daring and controversial film that ridiculed Nazi Germany. It was a satire comedy set during World War II. Stack portrayed Polish airman, Lieutenant Stanislaw Sobinski, who loved Maria Tura, played by Carole Lombard. Their on-screen chemistry was so effective, since their relationship was not about performance. Lombard had known Stack since he was 14 and had been one of the first Hollywood figures to support him. Lombard was more than simply a star. On and off the screen, she was a natural force. She calmed Stack's anxiety, taught him on set, and even served as an unofficial co-director. Later, director Ernst Lubitsch acknowledged that Lombard's impact significantly affected how well the movie performed. But always something tragic would define Being or Not to Be. Lombard's last film was this one. Lombard perished in an aircraft crash on January 16, 1942, before the film even reached theaters. She had been on a war bond tour traveling to assist the soldiers. Her unexpected passing rocked Hollywood. For Stack, it was intimate. He frequently mentioned how much she affected his profession and personal life. Before most people ever knew his name, she had faith in him. The movie by itself turned into a classic. Stack later referred to it as the best satire and knockdown of Nazism that's ever been done. Lombard's death, however, gave it an emotional gravity no one could have foreseen. The film's initial version, her character had a line that read, "What could happen in a plane?" The studio took it out following her death. Hearing that was too agonizing. When World War II upended everything, Robert Stack was on his way to becoming a significant Hollywood star. Acting was put on hold for him in 1942. He joined the United States Navy and remained there until 1945. Stack, however, was not just another recruit. He was a renowned skeet shooter before the war. He had an incredible record of more than 350 straight hits and the U.S. 20-gauge title. This ability qualified him for a vital position, teaching pilots aerial gunnery. Rather than flying combat sorties, Stack instructed pilots on how to shoot down hostile aircraft, so arming them for battle. His knowledge and precision won him the rank of lieutenant, as well as various medals and accolades. Unlike many actors who spent the war entertaining troops or working in administrative capacities, Stack was intimately involved in military training. His love of shooting had already made him one of the top marksmen of his era. It now assisted pilots in preparing for airborne life-or-death scenarios. This event really stuck for Stack. Long after his Hollywood career had taken off anew, he frequently spoke about it with pride. Getting back into films, nevertheless, was not as simple as he had thought. Stack was a rising celebrity before the conflict. He starred in The Mortal Storm, 1940, and To Be or Not to Be, 1942. Hollywood had transformed by the time he came back in 1945. The spotlight had been usurped by new performers. The predominant genre was film noir, and studios questioned if people would still be interested in actors who had been gone for decades. Stack found it difficult to get parts that may revive his career. Late 1940s saw him in movies that did nothing to restore his peak. A light comedy, Miss Tatlock's Millions from 1948 fell flat. Though it didn't restore his standing, My Outlaw Brother, 1951, gave him a supporting part. The business had moved on, and Stack found himself in a difficult situation. Though he was working, he was not the former leading guy. His career looked to be fading before he could show himself once more. One movie, however, changed that. Bullfighter and the Lady in 1951 became the chance Stack had been waiting for. John Wayne produced the movie. Bob Oyetikar directed it. It approached the perilous realm of bullfighting with a semi-documentary style, showing viewers the customs and hazards of the sport from inside. Stack played Johnny Regan, an American who journeys to Mexico to train with famed matador Manolo Estrada, played by Gilbert Roland. Shooting was not simple. Production saw 2 bullfighters badly hurt, which delayed things by weeks. Behind the scenes, much more drama unfolded. Boudicca and Wayne fought about the length of the movie. To shorten Boudicca's initial running time for American viewers, Wayne invited famous filmmaker John Ford to trim 42 minutes. Notwithstanding all these obstacles, the movie got an Academy Award nomination for Best Story, so validating the work's value. When Robert Stack was cast as Eliot Ness in The Untouchables, his career transformed in 1959. Running until 1963, the television show was inspired by the actual activities of Ness, a federal agent battling organized crime in 1930s Chicago. Stack's depiction of the brave lawman was forceful and powerful. His strong voice and constant look made Ness seem bigger than life. His work in 1960 earned him an Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series. Stack became well known, and the program was a success. Unlike many performers, Stack was more than simply a part in the show. He was involved, an unusual bargain at the time. He possessed 25% of The Untouchables. His faith in the program paid off as it grew to be among the most well-liked crime dramas of its time. Decades later, he would come back to the part in The Return of Eliot Ness in 1991, so demonstrating how intimately he was connected to the character. Apart from its American success, The Untouchables became a global phenomenon. Teenagers in the UK began dressing like the gangsters on the program, donning pinstripe suits and fedoras. It even affected daily vocabulary. Whenever crime was brought up, people would laugh and call Eliot Ness. The timing of the program increased its strength even further. During the late 1950s and early 1960s, stories of law and order attracted audiences. Ness's will and honesty were especially notable. The show also brought history to life by highlighting the actual hazards of organized crime during Prohibition. Television was evolving. The Untouchables served to guide that change. It used cinematic storytelling methods, launched a framework with weekly guest stars, and provided action that seemed like a Hollywood movie.